Hey everyone, Zach here, Hangry Muscle. Today I'm going to take you through on how to set up the ET-8550 for DTF using CADlink Digital Factory 11.
All right, so first thing when I open up CADlink, you want to go over to Tools, going to go to Options, and make sure that Show Advanced Settings and Options is enabled. This is going to help you avoid paper jams. It's also going to help so you don't have to use any blue tape. And I'm going to show you how to set that up later. Once you enable this, you'll get extra settings so that way you can make it so all the film that you use can be read and you don't have to do any gimmicks or do any special thing for it to read. It'll go through every time. So make sure that's enabled. I also enabled thin character support. It should be already enabled by default, but just make sure that's enabled. So if you're doing like little text and stuff, you'll be able to print it fine without any issue. One other thing in here is going to be the resolution. If you adjust this, the higher resolution, the slower the program is because it's going to take a while for those images to load, but they'll display a little bit better in the program. But it doesn't make a difference as far as the printing goes. It's just how the image is displayed. So if you want to set it at 72, so it's a little faster, then that's going to be better for printing because the faster the program is, the faster the prints will be. So I'm going to go ahead and save and close that. Now I'm going to go over to devices and I want to make sure this is where you can choose your printer. So you can go to add a printer and you're going to search for the ET-8550. And I already have the version that I want to use, which is the V2 version. If you want, you can use the regular version. Although with the V2 version, a lot of people have installed sys on their ET-8550s, especially if you're using that commercial sys. You're not going to be able to use this one. You're going to have to use the V2 so that way you can set your channels individually. That's pretty much the only difference between this one and the V2 version is in the V2 version, you can set the channels individually however you want them. So go ahead and select the V2 version if you don't already have it selected. And then if you are using the V2 version, the version one, just go ahead and swap over here. So I already have it installed, but if you don't have it installed, you'll just go through this process. I'm going to just install this first one. It'll search for the drivers automatically. You don't need to do anything. It's just going to install it for you. Click next. And then you would set it up how you have your printer connected to the PC. This is where you'll set it. Usually don't use the TCP IP. You're going to want to use a USB connection. So when you plug your printer in to the PC, you'll see USB, and that's the one you're going to select. For now, I'm just going to select no and push next. Now we'll go over to queue, manage queue. So this is what you should see. The Epson ET-8550 DTF V2, and then this should be the printer, should be the V2 printer. And then this should be how it's connected with the USB. So USB something something. It should be 3-digit number usually, and that's all will be connected. And so just make sure you see that. You don't need to install the control panel. We're going to be doing all the managing for the printer inside the RIP software. So we're not going to be printing directly to Windows, and you won't need to install this. Once you have that, make sure that is selected. Now, next thing is very important. We're going to set the ink order. So if your ink order is off, your colors are always going to be off, and you may have issues with the white printing correctly, whatever it is, it's going to give you some issues. So we're going to set the correct ink order. To set the ink order queue and then set ink order. Now in here is where you can set the ink order. In order to get your correct ink order, just do a nozzle check. So you set your channels according to your nozzle check. I have mine set up white, white, white two, and then cyan, yellow, magenta, black. And you can go ahead and just push OK. You could save it, but you should push OK. If your colors are ever off, just always make sure to check the ink order. is correct, and usually that'll fix it. Now for the main setting, we're gonna go to properties, go to Q, and then we're gonna go to Q properties. All right, and it's gonna take you to the general. In the general, we're gonna select the print mode. To get started, the best print mode to start with is just the color print mode. And you're going to look for color garment. So 1440 by 720 color garment is going to be the best option to start with to get those perfect accurate colors. This is going to be the print mode to start with. You'll notice I have a lot more in here, and these are just set up for different films that I use, different materials, different inks. They're different images. For the different scenarios, I have different print modes, so that way it's just a lot faster. But to get started, go ahead and adjust it, switch it over to 1440 by 720 color garment. Next, you're going to adjust the substrate color. Here, if you just click on this bar here, you can choose the color that you want. And here, this will be the color that will be displayed behind the images. And normally I do a dark gray just so I can see all black images and I can see the all white images without any issue. It's set to white by default. And if you upload an all white image, you won't be able to see it. So usually dark gray or like a light gray, and you'll be able to see pretty much all images without having to do any adjustments. So usually I set it there. Next, I'm going to go over to the media setup, and I'm going to set up my film and the size of the film that I'm using. Now they already have presets for you, and you can just go ahead and select those. And I normally use the DTF A3 Plus, so that's the one I'm going to choose. If you're using A4 or A3, just go ahead and set it for those. Now we're going to go to Layout Manager. A lot of this is already set for default, but the main thing here is going to be the layout mode. Switch it over to manual. This will allow you to move the images wherever you want. And then also when you want to put them on the same sheet, you can also just right click and adjust them to the same sheet. So I'll show you how to do that later when we get to that. But now just adjust it to manual and you'll be able to move everything where you want it. Now with the next thing that's going to be important, some of these we really don't use, scheduling, printer status. The job reserve is important. And here, oh, it's not that important, but make your life a little bit easier. Anytime you do print and CADlink, they'll go down to here. And so those settings or whatever adjustments you made to that image will be saved down there in the job reserve. The more images you have down there, it's also going to slow down the program. And yours is probably set auto clean reserve. I disabled it. I'll just let the images load up and delete the ones I'm not printing anymore. Print labels. You probably won't use this much, but I do use it for certain things. It does allow you to put like the job name next to it, or say the size of an image next to it. So say if I want to see what an image is going to look like at 3 inches, an image is going to look like at 4 inches, or however big I want to see it and see the difference between the sizes, I can have the size next to it. So I can see which one is which if I'm doing like hats or something, or stickers, or even like say like the front chest, I can see how it's going to look with that size. Also the job name, if you're doing say different colors with different settings, you'll be able to see it that way. Same thing, I don't use the production mockup or markup, PDF export, or the grommet setup. Next thing, you're just going to go over to the color layer. Some of the options in here you're not going to be using. They may be for different printing methods, or also your printer may not have the capabilities to do some of the actions, like putting the clear coat over the transfers is not able to do that. The main thing we're going to be adjusting is we're going to go over to the color layer, and here, this is very important, you can set your white. Now for the most part you can use underbase. This will give you really good white for getting that underbase with the white coverage. If you want a little bit more white coverage, you can go underbase and highlight, which will make the white pop when it's surrounded by a lot of different colors. But for the most part, I just use underbase. I don't want to use that extra white because I want my transfers to feel soft. So we're just gonna, I usually set it to just underbase. Next, we're gonna set the white under black. Here, you're going to need to adjust it and play around with it. This is going to be different for everybody, depending on the settings that you're not the settings, but the materials that you're using. So different films and different inks will require different settings here. Right now, I'm going to go ahead and set it at 60%. Now, here's going to be the main thing that you're going to set. This is where you can actually set the white percentage on how much white is being put behind your image. And same thing, it's going to be dependent on the materials that you're using. If you're using, say, a different film or a different ink, you may need to use a different percentage. Some films like Sindel have a low ink absorption rate, so you're going to want to lower this really low. That way you don't get the ink spilling down on the film. And for films that have high ink absorption rate, like I'm using today from All American Print and Supply Company, then you're going to go ahead and use a little bit more ink here. And I'm going to use 70% today. You're going to raise this up a little bit more so you can keep that vibrancy, and that way you can get those prints that pop. Now the choke, I normally set this to 0. And the reason being is if you set this high or have this on, anytime you print images that have very small text or small lines, the choke is going to ruin that part, and then the ink won't stick to it, because what it did was the choke is pulling the white back. So if you have something that's really thin or really small, there's going to be no white backing behind it. Powder won't stick to those areas. So I normally just set this to 0, and that fixes that issue, and I won't have any issues here. Now for the rest of this is going to be optional, but you're going to want to set up a different print mode for these. So this would allow a print mode for if you wanted the color to be automatically knocked out. For the black, you could set a print mode for that. If you wanted one for white, you can set a print mode for that. Go ahead and raise this up to 40. And this is just the color boost graphics. This will give you a little bit more vibrancy with your prints. With the printer options, this is going to be very important. So now that we enabled those advanced options and tools, we now have a lot more options here, and this is how we'll avoid dealing with that paper jam issue or having to use blue tape. We can set up our media type so that way it matches the film that we're using. And most films that I found and tested have worked best with the thin paper setting. So as long as you enable the thin paper setting, you shouldn't have issues with the film being read inside the printer. Now, the next thing that's going to be very important to set is the resolution. With the changing it over to the color print mode, the color garment mode, it already enabled it to this 1440 by 720 big dots. That's going to be the best print mode for speed, color accuracy, and vibrancy. If you want to make it a little bit more vibrant, you can go big dots 1440 by 1440. The only thing is with that, it's going to be it's like double the time for it to print. So this will take about 20 minutes to print. These will take about 7 to 9 minutes to print. So it's a big jump. And if you wanted it to print even faster, you can go down to the 720 by 720 and get those out in like 3 to 5 minutes, depending on the size of the film that you're using. Anything above 1440, the 1440 2880, or anything above 1440 by 1440, I didn't see much of a difference. It just took much longer to print. So normally the two that you're probably going to be working with are either the 1440 or just the default 1440 by 720. So just go ahead and set it here. This one is going to be the best one to use, and that's going to be the 1440 by 720 big dots. Next is going to be your ink setup. Just make sure it has the CMYK white. This is not the ink order. This is just the colors that you're going to be using. Inline speed, I normally set that to default normal. If you're having issues with banding, you can try adjusting these and see if that fixes the issue with it. So you can do either normal or no inline. Either one works. And just make sure media type, that's set to thin paper. So you can avoid those paper jams and cropped images and also having to use blue tape. Your paper source, set it to rear paper feeder. Print direction, this is going to be more of a preference. Bidirectional prints faster, unidirection prints a little bit slower. But if you're having issues with banding, printing on bidirectional, then go ahead and switch it to unidirection. The white ink passes, normally you're not going to have to add more white ink passes. The printer puts out enough white. So with this, I usually just set it at 1, but if you need it more of like a white thick background for something, say if you're going to put it on a banner or something that's probably not going to go on a garment, then you can add more white passes. And that is pretty much it. The rest of this is going to be something you can play around with later and that I'll probably get more into and I cover in my masterclass. For now, this is going to be the settings that you need to adjust to get started. And the last thing you're going to do here is just create a print mode down here at the bottom. And you're going to save it to something you'll remember. I usually save mine 14, usually name it you want to do the resolution so you know it's that resolution. Then you can name it how much white you use. So if we set it at 70 white, we can set it there. So that way we know it's there and then go ahead and save it. And I usually just put like all shirts. So this one will work for all shirts. And then we'll go ahead and save it. And boom. Now that's going to be our new print mode. Now RIP software is set up. To add an image, you can just go to the green thing and or the white paper with the green plus, and that will show you how to add an image, or you can also go to file and then open image. For printing, we just need to load up an image. I'm going to actually load up a few images, so you can just grab whatever you want. And so once you find your images, then just go ahead and click on the ones you want and open them up. And now they're going to load in. If you selected multiple, you can select as many as you want and they'll all load in. Now, if you get a message saying there's the image is low resolution, to supersize it, just push OK. You can also disable that message. You're going to get that anytime your image is detected. It detects your images below 300 dpi, which is the bare minimum to print. You can print below that, but that's just what is recommended for printing. So usually you'll get that message, but just push OK, it'll go away. Now that we have our images loaded in, I'm going to print all of these on the same sheet. So if you go, once you click on the image, you can come over here and this is where you'll set the size of it. So this will tell you how wide the image is going to be. This will tell you how high what the height of the image will be. So if I wanted to be, for the example, I want these all on the same sheet. So I'm going to put it 5 inches, maybe 6. I'm not sure how many I can fit on there. We'll see. 6. 6 by 6. I think we can get 4 by 4 in there. So I'm going to set it 6 inches. Here you can set the exact position. So if I wanted it an inch over on the film and then an inch down. Let me scroll up. An inch down, it would move it to that exact spot. So I know it's going to be 1 inch down, 1 inch over exactly on the film. But normally we're just going to leave it as is. I'm going to go ahead and adjust these. 6. Okay. Now, whenever you have your images already set, you can just go ahead and right click anywhere on the pages, and you'll see this pop up, automatic nesting. Then go to auto nest all content. This message will pop up, and you just push yes. And then it will put them all on the same sheet. So this is how you can do gang sheets as well. Just with this auto nesting feature, you can set the size of the images on the sheet and you'll get the correct size. Now that I have all my images on the same sheet, there's two ways you can print your images. I usually spool the job first. You could just push the printer and it will just start printing once it's spooled. But normally I push the spool first, the one with the purple spool. And this will pop up. It'll give you this close page options menu. And you can come down here and select the amount of sheets that you want printed with those images. So if I wanted 10 of that one, I can have 10 or however many I need printed. So when I'm doing printing for the same design over and over, I don't have to keep going back and pushing print again. It will just keep printing them off. So I only need one of them for now. We're just doing the test. And it's spooling, so I did load sheets in there, but we're actually good to go. And this one at this rate will take about like 7 to 9 minutes to print. Probably a little bit faster, 5 minutes, since it's not the full page, but usually like a full A3 plus is going to take you about 9 minutes to print that fully. So I'm going to switch you guys over to just the camera. I'm going to end the Zoom call, and then that way I could show you guys the printing process as well as the curing, powdering, and peeling. That's how we do it. So wait. The cool part about using this film is because it does have a high ink absorption rate, it dries really quickly. So I can actually powder it right away. I don't need to wait. It's ready to go right out of the printer. So I don't have to sit there and wait around for it to build up humidity on it. It's ready to go. So that's one of the benefits of using higher quality film. Drop some powder on there. Now I'm just going to shake off all the excess powder. Well, that's it powdered. No issues there. Now I'm just going to take it over to my heat mat. It serves me well. It serves me well. This is going to probably be the last time I'll be using the heat mat, but it's just not as convenient if compared to like an oven. But it's much more convenient if you're using the heat press. Heat mat is going to be faster, but the most convenient way is going to be a DTF oven to cure sheets. It's going to be the fastest and easiest way. Because like with this, I usually move it around so that way I get all the parts cured. Also use this so that way I can this won't burn, so I can make sure like the edges and stuff get cured or little spots get cured. Normally when it stops smoking, it's usually cured. But you can also look and take a look and see the parts that still look grainy. Those parts need to be cured. So let me see if I can. It's going to be hard to see. You see the difference between this one and that one, how that one has got like a glossy shine to it, and then that one is a lot drier. So now I got powder on that thing. So yeah, just the only thing with this, just make sure not to get like powder. Leave it till it gets powder, because right now I got a little powder there. So. But that's fine. But that's what you'll see. You get that gloss, shine. And that's gonna be it after it's fully cured. Okay, so we got the transfer. I'm gonna go ahead and put it on something, see what it looks like. I'm gonna do this one as well, the gold one. Alright, so it does need to cool for a few seconds. And normally I suggest removing it from the heat press. That way it will cure. It'll peel easier. That's it for today's video. Stay tuned for the next one. I'm going to go over how to get the perfect white and what settings to use and how to set that up perfectly.